Tyler Robinson is the alleged person responsible for Charlie Kirk's assassination, and if you wanted to spend the rest of your time on this earth looking into this, you could, because there's just that much information and different viewpoints, etc., regarding what happened here online. What I'm doing is giving my best shot at compiling information that is public information that you can all find on the internet into one video in the hopes of making this a little bit easier to understand. That said, I'm not a lawyer, you're not a lawyer. Fact of the matter is that we don't know what took place that day, so everything that I'm saying in this video is alleged and everyone is innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. So, the first day of the preliminary hearing in the Tyler Robinson case just took place yesterday, July 6, 2026. The entire point of a preliminary hearing in a courtroom is to determine whether or not there is sufficient evidence for a case to proceed to trial. In Utah's criminal justice system, a preliminary hearing is a legal checkpoint, meaning that it has to happen in order for a case to move forward. Tyler Robinson has been charged with the aggravated murder of Charlie Kirk, felony discharge of a obstruction of justice, witness tampering, and commission of a violent offense in the presence of a child. He has not yet entered a plea. The hearing that began yesterday is expected to last 5 days from July 6th to the 10th. Charlie's parents, Robert and Catherine Kirk, and his widow, Erica Kirk, were in the courtroom yesterday for the first time since the case began. Donald Trump Jr. was also present. Tyler Robinson's parents sat several rows behind the Kirk family, and of course, Tyler Robinson sat between his attorneys at the defense table, where his wrists were shackled to a chain around his waist. And again, the sole question that needs to be answered is there enough evidence, enough probable cause to justify putting this person through a full trial? Yes or no? It's very likely going to be a yes, meaning that this will go to trial. Tyler Robinson is 23 years old now. He was 22 years old on the day of the crime last year. He is the accused. The case is formally titled The State of Utah versus Tyler James Robinson. But important to note that last year, the court officially designated Erica Kirk as the victim representative in this case. So she is representing Charlie because, of course, he's no longer here. So again, the hearing is structured not to lay out the complete arguments of both parties, but for both the prosecution and the defense to say, look, this is how much evidence we have. We do have enough to find him guilty in trial. Vice versa, the defense can say, here's the evidence that we have. We do have enough to try and say that he's not guilty in a court of law. The preliminary hearing is also when evidence can be presented if either side wants it to be dismissed, aka not used in court. And it's also, I believe, when new evidence can be brought forward to be submitted to be used in trial. Because of that, we start to get a little bit of a better idea of what kind of evidence has been submitted and a better understanding of what exactly it is that both sides plan to argue when this case eventually does move forward. Now, in Utah specifically, a preliminary hearing can have a second purpose in which the judge needs to evaluate whether the prosecution's argument has enough reasonable substance to make a crime death penalty eligible. Prosecutors are seeking the death penalty against Tyler Robinson. That means that this hearing is just not about whether there is enough evidence to go to trial or not. It is also about whether the state can keep the death penalty on the table, and it sounds like they are going to be able to. And just a quick recap in case you need it. Last year on September 10th, 2025, 31-year-old Charlie Kirk was holding a campus debate event at Utah Valley University in Utah. That was meant to be his first stop on what had been announced to be an American comeback tour. More than 3,000 people showed up to the event to watch him speak, and the event was held outdoors in the courtyard of UVU's campus. At approximately noon, Charlie began speaking and debating with students. The debate portion had just begun when at 12:23 p.m. a bang was heard. Charlie was struck in what looked to be his neck by a bullet fired from the roof of the Losi Center building, a building approximately 142 yards away from where he was. He was in the middle of answering an audience question when he was hit, and the scene erupted into chaos immediately. Officer Christopher Bagley testified in court yesterday, quote, "A lot of people were screaming, standing up, and starting to run in all different directions," end quote. Charlie Kirk was then carried by his team to an SUV and transported by private vehicle to a hospital where he was pronounced deceased. The autopsy has not been released to the public, and in fact, in court yesterday, the judge approved to have it submitted into evidence, but also approved that it would not be published neither in the courtroom nor viewable by any camera. So we're never going to see that. But David Hull, who is an officer with the Utah Department of Public Safety, testified yesterday that the medical examiner's report ruled Charlie's official cause of death as a gunshot wound to the neck and the manner of death as homicide. Back to the scene the day of the crime. Officer Christopher Bagley testified that he went up to see the Losi Center rooftop, and according to him, what he saw was an area where it appeared that someone had been lying down with a direct sight line to where Charlie Kirk had been sitting. He described what he found as a sniper pad, also stating that he also found a screwdriver on the rooftop, a shoe print on the grass, and scuff marks on the sidewalk below. In other words, he's saying he thought he found the area in which the person was when they fired at Charlie and the path in which they fled. As part of the evidence, we also know that the prosecution plans to present surveillance footage they say confirms an individual running across the rooftop, jumping off the building, and fleeing campus into a nearby neighborhood. They claim that individual was Tyler Robinson, the person who fired at Charlie, gathered up his weapon, jumped off, fled, at some point discarded of his weapon in a wooded area nearby before then leaving the scene. In a wooded area near campus, investigators later allegedly found the suspected weapon used, a rifle with a mounted scope and wrapped in a dark colored towel. The weapon does belong to Tyler Robinson. It's been confirmed that it matches the description to one that was gifted to Tyler Robinson by his grandfather. So it is his, okay? And I said that it was later found because it was not found the day of the crime, despite trained detection dogs searching for it. Trained detection dogs are considered amongst the most reliable detection tools available to law enforcement. Studies have placed their accuracy anywhere from 90 to 95% under controlled conditions. They are used so often because 9 times out of 10, they are going to be able to sniff out a weapon that has been used. Yet, somehow, they did not find the weapon in the wooded area near campus the day of. They found it the day after. But moving on. Authorities stated that the weapon had one spent bullet casing inside, meaning that it had been fired once, and they also found 2 or 3 unused rounds. And the prosecution states that something that made these bullets unusual was that someone had carved messages into each one of them. Prosecutors would later use that to say that Tyler Robinson had texted his roommate/romantic partner, Lance Twiggs, referring to these engraved messages as part of his confession, but we're going to circle back around to that. Now, at this point, you may be wondering, well, who is Tyler Robinson anyway, and where did he come from? Tyler Robinson grew up in a middle-class family in Washington and Utah, which is approximately 3.5 hours away from Utah Valley University. He was allegedly raised Mormon by his parents, Amber and Matt Robinson, alongside his 2 brothers. His mom is a social worker, and his father runs a company specializing in kitchen countertops. Tyler graduated from high school in 2021 with a 4.0 GPA. He then got a scholarship to attend Utah State University, and he did, but for only 1 semester. He then decided to enroll in an electrical apprenticeship program at Dixie Technical College, and at the time of his arrest, he was in his 3rd year and living in an apartment with his roommate/romantic partner, Lance Twiggs. He had no prior criminal record that we know of, but allegedly he had developed what investigators described as an obsession with Charlie Kirk in the period leading up to that day in September. Now, let's talk about what the prosecution is claiming to be true in terms of the timeline of events that they believed happened on the day of Charlie Kirk's public assassination. The prosecution plans to argue that on September 10th, Tyler Robinson sent a message to his roommate/romantic partner, Lance Twiggs, that read, quote, "Drop what you're doing, look under my keyboard." Lance Twiggs allegedly did and allegedly found a handwritten note left hidden that read, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I'm going to take it." Lance allegedly then texted Tyler Robinson saying, "What? You're joking, right?" And now these messages, they are not timestamped. Don't ask me why, because I have the same question, but they're just not. However, allegedly they took place after Tyler did it, after he went through with it. Tyler allegedly texting Lance directly saying, quote, "I'm still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I'm sorry to involve you," unquote. Lance says, "You weren't the one that did it, right?" Tyler, "I am. I'm sorry." Lance, "I thought they caught the person." Tyler, "No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering." Lance, "Why?" Tyler, "Why did I do it?" Lance, "Yeah." Tyler, "I had enough of this hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it." Lance then asks him how long he's been planning this, to which Tyler responds to by saying about a week or so. In that text exchange, Tyler also talks about how he's worried that he left fingerprints, how he has to leave the weapon in a bush where he changed outfits, how the weapon was left wrapped in a towel, how he wished that he could have gone back to get it before they could find it, and again brings up the engraved bullets and how that would really be telling. If they found the weapon, they would be able to connect that to him. So he goes into detail, okay, about his plan, how he executed, and his movements after the fact. And he ends that conversation with, quote, Don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. Tyler also allegedly posted to a Discord chat saying, quote, "Hey guys, I have bad news for you all. It was me at UVU yesterday. I'm sorry for all of this," end quote. So the prosecution is saying, boom, we have a written confession, case closed. And we're going to come back to the defense's argument on that. But for now, they're saying, look, see, he's confessed. But not only that, we also have surveillance footage that shows that he did do it. But, well, actually, we don't have surveillance footage of him actually doing it, but we have one witness, one singular witness out of the thousands of people who were there who saw a person on the roof, aka where Tyler Robinson would have been, aka he's obviously the one that did it. This is what the prosecution is saying. They're saying one person saw a person up there, didn't see them actually use the weapon, but this footage shows that it was Tyler and that he was up on the rooftop. When they're arguing this, they're basing it on some specific pieces of footage, such as the morning footage that allegedly shows Tyler Robinson arriving on campus. Cameras captured a man arriving at UVU at approximately 8:29 a.m. in a gray Dodge Challenger. The man is wearing a plain maroon t-shirt, light-colored shorts, light-colored shoes, and a black hat with a white logo. Investigators say that this is Tyler Robinson arriving roughly, 4 hours before the crime? At some point after arriving, the man on camera then changes into darker clothing. Then there's the rooftop footage in which cameras captured a person running across the roof of the Low-C building in the moments immediately after Charlie was hit, leading then into the escape footage where allegedly that same person is seen jumping down from the rooftop, landing on the ground below, and fleeing on foot along the edge of the campus parking lot, across a road and into a nearby wooded area where the weapon was later found. The shoe prints and the scuff marks on the sidewalk that Officer Christopher Bagley testified yesterday in the courtroom that he saw would be consistent with someone dropping from that exact location. So those pieces of surveillance footage were obtained by authorities, and pictures of them were put out into the public in the immediate aftermath. Tyler Robinson's father sees this. Allegedly, he recognizes his son. Not only that, but he also recognizes the weapon description matching the one that he knew that Tyler had. So he confronts him. When he is confronted, Tyler Robinson then allegedly implies to his parents that he was the person responsible. And within 33 hours of the assassination, he was getting driven by his father to the Washington County Sheriff's Office in Utah to turn himself in. He was then transferred to the Utah County Jail. 11 days after the crime, Erica Kirk, Charlie's wife, gets on stage and she publicly forgives Tyler Robinson, saying, quote, "My husband Charlie, he wanted to save young men, just like the one who took his life. Our Savior said, 'Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do.' That young man, I forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did and it's what Charlie would do," end quote. So to recap, because I'm throwing a lot of information at you, the evidence that the prosecution has or says that they have to prove that Tyler Robinson publicly assassinated Charlie Kirk in front of thousands of people is, of course, the weapon itself discovered in the wooded area near campus and confirmed to be his. The DNA evidence. Authorities have said that DNA consistent with Tyler Robinson was found on the trigger of the weapon, on other parts of the weapon, and on the towel used to wrap the weapon. Then there's the engraved bullets, and you have Tyler Robinson allegedly texting Lance about these. Also, the one that was used allegedly was found on Charlie's person, which makes sense. You have the surveillance footage of the man seen fleeing the scene. You have the physical note that he allegedly hid and told his roommate and romantic partner Lance to go and find that red, drop what you're doing, look under my keyboard. But perhaps most importantly, you have Tyler Robinson's own confessions in detail written to Lance Twiggs. Now, let's break down what the defense is not liking about this and how they're looking at this case. Because you hear all of that, and it is easy to say, wow, case closed, put him behind bars. But then you learn additional information and things begin to look not as clear cut. In regards to the DNA found on the weapon, that is Tyler Robinson's weapon. His fingerprints are on it. But so is the DNA of up to 5 or more other individuals. We don't know whose, but that was gifted to Tyler from his father, and it was originally his grandfather's, who is a hunter, meaning that it's been passed down through the family, aka it is entirely expected that multiple family members would have handled it over the years before it eventually got to Tyler. Let me say that again, there are 5 or more sets of fingerprints found on that weapon. That is a detail that I feel like not enough people are talking about it. Next, there is that whole thing of Officer Christopher Bagley finding Tyler Robinson's setup on the roof where he fired from. So can we see that? Christopher Bagley on the stand yesterday says, no, sorry, actually, my body camera died just as I got on top of the roof and found that, so no, can't show you that, doesn't exist. Okay, next. The engraved bullets and matching the one that was found in the autopsy directly to the weapon to prove that Tyler Robinson's weapon was used that day on Charlie, because no one actually saw him do it, so that needs to be proven somehow. They could have proven that it was used that day if they would have tested Tyler Robinson for gun residue powder, because without a doubt, that would be on him if he did use the weapon, but they just decided not to test for that, so that's out. Anyway, at the beginning, they were claiming that there was an entire bullet found on Charlie and kept as evidence. Then at some point, it switched from the entire thing to now only being just fragments. Well, a judge unsealed an ATF report stating that the ATF could not match that to the weapon because when it hit bone on impact and it broke apart into different pieces. Therefore, the results of a match, the thing that would have without a doubt proven that that exact weapon was used, was deemed inconclusive. And the defense says, well, the prosecution actually cannot prove that my client's weapon was fired. And this part I'm about to tell you next. This part comes from Candace Owens and something that she discovered and spoke about on her show. And I want you guys, when I'm talking about this, put any personal opinions aside that you may have on any of the people involved and just focus on the evidence, because I'm trying to speak just about the evidence. Because anyway, in a report, there's a line that reads, quote, regarding the firearm evidence, the defense has been provided with an ATF summary report which indicates that the ATF was unable to identify the bullet recovered at the autopsy to the rifle allegedly tied to Mr. Robinson. But in that same report, they state that because the ATF was unable to match it, the FBI is now going to try, quote, the state has also indicated that the FBI is in the process of conducting a second comparative bullet analysis as well as a bullet lead analysis, but these analyses are not yet complete. So in simple terms, the prosecution is saying, we cannot prove that Tyler Robinson's weapon was fired, but using a comparative bullet analysis done by the FBI, we are still trying to prove that it was used. Candace, on her show, pointed out, and I confirmed, you can Google this yourself, but a comparative bullet lead analysis, CBLA, is a discontinued forensic technique that used chemistry to link a crime scene bullet to those in a suspect's possession. A technique that is a discontinued technique, a technique that they stopped using back in 2005, more than 20 years ago, because it was deemed unreliable and because it was putting innocent people in prison. That technique that was proven wrong, that was proven to not work, is the one that the prosecution says that they're going to be using to try and find Tyler Robinson guilty, okay? Take that for what you will. Apart from that, you might still be thinking, well, they have a written hidden note that Tyler Robinson told Lance Twiggs to find that read, I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I'm going to take it. Written confession, there it is. So the defense says, where is that note? Can you show us that note? Can you show us the note that you found that allegedly our client wrote? The prosecution says, well, no, it's been destroyed. Yeah, so it's not here. It's not anywhere, actually. It's destroyed. Okay, interesting. Well then, what about the text messages that you are claiming that our client wrote as a written confession to his roommate / romantic partner, Lance Twiggs? Can you please show us evidence for that? The defense says, can you tell us how you have them, where you found them, how did you get them, what server did they come from, are they dated, how did you pull them, when are they dated, what device did they come from? Can you tell us anything so we know that these text messages are real? And the prosecution says, no can do, but trust, they are real. So then leading up to this preliminary hearing, the defense is like, well, you're not giving us much. The prosecution is saying that they have evidence, but they are not willing to provide proof on how or where or when or where they found it, which they're supposed to do so the defense knows how to defend and what they're working with, but they're just not willing to do it. So the defense is probably thinking, okay, well, we're not getting much from you guys. Everything that we are requesting is being denied, but at least at the preliminary hearing, we will get to question and examine Lance Twiggs. Lance Twiggs, who is arguably the biggest witness for the prosecution, who has the most incriminating evidence, aka those confession messages from Tyler Robinson himself. So yeah, we're looking forward to speaking to Lance Twiggs. But no, because then the judge ruled that Lance Twiggs would not testify in person during the preliminary hearing. The defense submitted a request to force Lance to testify in person, and the judge denied it, saying that the defense could just wait until trial to challenge anything that they wanted to. So there's that. Later this week, they are going to play a pre-recorded video in court in which Lance Twiggs states that Tyler Robinson confessed, but I mean, it's pre-recorded, so like, what are you really gonna do with that? It's not like you can't ask any questions. Oh, and as far as the surveillance footage that the prosecution planned to use to show that Tyler Robinson had been on campus, I think it was something like 4 times that day. First of all, the defense is saying it's so blurry and his face is half covered, so how can you even really say for a fact that it was Tyler? But either way, David Hull testified yesterday in court that he viewed the footage, but the judge did not allow that evidence to be admitted because prosecutors had it altered by zooming in at places and drawing red circles around items of interest. So the prosecution has to submit the unedited version of that footage if they do want to use it as evidence, which it sounds like they are going to do later this week, if not today. There's also the fact that for whatever reason, the prosecution took 1.5 million years to give the defense different items that they asked for. For example, Charlie Kirk's autopsy report was completed September 16th, 2025. It was not given to the defense until November 13th, 2025. The autopsy photographs were taken September 10th, 2025. They were not given to the defense until March 18th, 2026. To conclude, the defense is bamboozled for many reasons, but one of the biggest ones being that the prosecution claims to have solid evidence against their client, but they are not willing to say where or how they got it, therefore leaving the defense to feel like they cannot dispute it because they don't have it. So that's a small recap and a small update. Today is day 2 of the preliminary hearing. It's taking place in Utah, and there are only 14 seats in the courtroom reserved for the public. Yesterday, Charlie's family, as well as Erica, briefly walked out of the courtroom twice when graphic photos of the crime and of Charlie were being showed. They walked out of those parts because they would be incredibly difficult for anyone to see, but they did return. And to conclude, the prosecution called law enforcement witnesses yesterday to testify, but that was kind of that for now. Over the remaining days, the prosecution plans to present the full body of physical evidence, including photos, and most significantly, the pre-recorded testimony of Lance Twiggs, which is expected to cover the confession note, the text messages, and Twiggs' account of what Robinson said exactly. The defense plans to call 3 forensic experts to challenge their evidence and conclusions, and when we hear that, that might be the clearest preview yet that we will have on what the defense strategy will look like at trial. At the conclusion of the 5-day hearing, the judge will then rule on 2 questions: whether there is sufficient probable cause to send Tyler Robinson for trial for aggravated murder, and whether the death penalty is still on the table. If the judge finds that there is enough, which is highly likely, Tyler Robinson will then be formally arraigned and enter his plea at a separate hearing. A trial would then be scheduled, but given how much there is to this, that trial is probably still so many months away. 2 things I want to say before I end this video. One, I kind of want to do a series on this entire thing because believe it, I'm sure you do believe it if you're keeping up with any of this. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I kind of want to do an entire series on Tyler Robinson and his case. Could do so many videos on Erica Kirk, don't even get me started. Kind of want to do an entire video on evidence and what has changed / been inconsistent in regards to that. And then I kind of want to do a video on Candace Owens' theory of the mic. So let me know if you guys would be interested in that. Second thing, I know this is likely going to be a controversial video. I know everyone has a personal opinion on everyone or anyone that could be involved in this case. I tried to format this case on it being centered around Tyler Robinson because personal opinions aside on any of the players that could be or could not be involved in this, I feel like what I want you to realize with this video is the possibility. I'm not saying that he is innocent. I'm not saying that at all. I just want you to consider the possibility that an innocent person could be given the death penalty right in front of our eyes. And that should make you feel disturbed. But I'm eager to read this comment section. I'm gonna be right in the comment section as soon as I post it. Let me know your thoughts, opinions, and feelings about this entire thing. And yeah, thank you for spending time with me today. Hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.